What is driving all of them is a better life for their children.
Try to get back to my son, my wife.
People will die because of the Remain in Mexico policy.
Everyone comes in, we don't want that type of migration.
They brought problems because there are too many of them.
There's enormous pressures for people to move north.
They shot at us from Mexico.
All they know is that they need to get out of the place that they were at.
I don't even know that those kids belong to that family.
I worry more about the walls that are being built in people's hearts.
They want border control, but they are using this as the boogeyman.
As immigration south of our border continues to take center stage in our political debate, we decided to come to Tijuana to see for ourselves what was going on. Tonight, in this special edition of Richard French Live, we're going to spend the next hour examining where immigration south of our border stands, how it has affected the cities bearing the brunt of this crisis, and most importantly, the fight that the children at the center of it all continue to face. We begin at El Chaparral, the plaza in Tijuana, where the journeys of thousands of migrants ends. I arrive here with my 17-year-old daughter, Bella, who wants to learn firsthand about those journeys since many on the trip are her age or even younger. It's at El Chaparral where the immigrants put their names on La Lista, an unofficial wait list, to meet with U.S. immigration officials. It was made by the migrants after President Trump changed policy and forced them to stay in Mexico while seeking asylum. Michael Soto and his wife Darling are on La Lista. They are from Nicaragua. He opposes the current government there and was under attack.
Lo que pasaría si volvemos a Nicaragua es probablemente que preso o realmente me desaparezcan.
¿Preso? ¿Desaparición?
Solo tres opciones: muerte, desaparición o preso.
He shows us his number. He's only 6 away from being called.
Today is the most important day in my life and in the life of my wife.
It is also where we find Magali Torres, waiting for her number to be called. Her husband was a police officer in Guerrero, Mexico. She says he was killed by the Mexican cartel.
Y lo mataron y pues él nada más estaba haciendo su trabajo solo por no querer participar con ellos en el cártel, por eso lo mataron nada más. Porque estoy amenazada, me mataron a mi esposo y a raíz de eso me amenazaron a mí. Yo me quiero ir porque pues aquí está muy difícil, donde quiera que yo voy, me andan siguiendo.
She wants to be in the United States where her and her 2 young children will be safe.
Ana Isabel.
Meanwhile, on the plaza, numbers continue to be called and people's futures continue to be decided. Michael Soto shows his wife that they are just 1 number away.
2162. Michael Alexander Soto Andrade de Nicaragua.
When his number is called, he pushes to the front of the line. Then, the couple grabs their belongings and rush off to meet with U.S. officials in what they hope is a better future.
Thank you.
When they get there, they will have what's called a credible fear interview. Now, the vast majority of these folks, they come from 3 principal nations in Latin America: Guatemala, El Salvador, and also Honduras. They have to impress upon the authorities about the dangers that they're running from and the dangers that await them if they're sent back home. Now, certainly, this process did not begin with the Trump administration, but it has ground in many ways to a halt. And that's where people are waiting indefinite periods in detention centers here while they await their final day here to find out if they're granted asylum. So in many ways, the process just beginning for these people. Thankfully for the migrants, there are many volunteers who want to help. People like Erica Pinheiro of Al Otro Lado, a group of attorneys who work pro bono to help migrants through the difficult asylum process.
We're at the port of entry every single morning, observing the illegal list and talking to people who are about to go in to give them some sense of what they're about to confront. You can have all the evidence in the world that you're going to die in your home country, but if it's not for the right reason, you'll be deported. And so having an attorney is so essential.
She's offended by those who claim that they're just coaching the migrants on how to get asylum.
Any attorney prepares their client for court. The job of the attorney is to explain the law and explain how a person's testimony can be relevant to those laws. And so the insinuation that we're somehow coaching people is wrong. A lot of what we do is tell people that they won't qualify for asylum under the US system, and we refer them to UNHCR or Mexican attorneys who can help them get legal status in Mexico.
Then there are the shelters. There are about 20 of them in Tijuana. Father Patrick Murphy, he runs the men's-only shelter, Casa del Migrante.
Te corrieron?
He's been doing it for 6 years and says the face of immigration is changing.
Up till about 6-7 months ago, we were still at the 90% level deportees, all men. Then with the first caravan, things began to change. And now pretty much this year, it's been 50% deportees, 40% Central Americans, and 10% other, mostly African. The lack of collaboration from U.S. authorities, because they're not processing people quickly enough, is making Tijuana very difficult.
At Casas YMCA, the only shelter that houses children who came without their parents, there has been so many kids, they've had to expand their rec room into a bedroom. Director Uriel Gonzalez says traveling by caravan is crucial for their safety.
The unaccompanied children join the caravans because by traveling with a large group will be a way of defense, so they will be more protected. And we are very worried about the risk and the vulnerabilities that these kids may face.
There have been rumors adults are claiming to be minors to try and get into the U.S. easier. Gonzalez says that's simply not true.
One of the things that we started to identify when the caravan arrived, the kids that were 16, 17, they automatically changed their age, but to pretend that they were adults, because they didn't want to be spotted as children and of course be taken to the protection of the Child Protective Services.
Casa del Migrante's Father Murphy says he has seen a lot over the years, but lately he is seeing the real physical effects of the violent and economic issues affecting these migrants.
There was one I remember was here about a month ago. He was from El Salvador. He had his 2 kids. And I was really impressed with them because I thought the girl was about 4 years old, and it ended up she was 8 years old. And I just looked at her and said, boy, she's not eating enough, obviously. She was so tiny.
That's where there are free health services in Tijuana for the migrants, all run by volunteers. Ronika Mukherjee is a nurse practitioner from New Haven, Connecticut.
A lot of them are acute problems, and including upper respiratory infections, urinary tract infections, having to do sex work in order to survive, so STIs, and then also untreated diabetes. People who are insulin dependent who don't have any access to their insulin, which can kill them very easily, and also hypertensive issues, lots of dehydration, children who haven't been vaccinated. Lots of things that you wouldn't normally see in the United States. All of our medications are free. If people need an x-ray or they need some sort of intervention that requires money, volunteers like us will pay for that.
Phil Connected, he also volunteers and says the mental health issues are just as bad.
Mental health is definitely something that's a huge problem here, just because a lot of these individuals are fleeing persecution. The stories that we've heard have been incredibly just difficult and sad. There's a lot of anxiety because of the unknown. A lot of them are unsure about what's going to happen. All they know is that they need to get out of the place that they were at, and they need to flee whatever it was that they're running away from.
But there are some in Mexico who feel differently. Tijuana Mayor Jose Manuel Gastelum denies he doesn't want them here, but says the way they came is a problem.
Well, we can't forget our beginnings. Tijuana's a migrant town, but where the buck stops when there's no order, when there's disgrace for the city, when people who come down and trying to tear us apart and say bad things about Tijuana.
The migrants, they did problems, they brought problems because there are too many of them at the same time. And they came kind of aggressive.
You know, for many of us that watch the news, this whole debate about whether it's a great big beautiful wall, a fence, a barrier, you spend one day in Tijuana, you realize that's not what any of this is really about. On one side, you see one of the most violent cities in the world, and it's separated by whatever you want to call this, to what for many is the promised land. People are coming from all over Central America and beyond to try to get to here, but it won't separate the desperation that separates them from where they want to be.
I worry more about the walls that are being built in people's hearts, because I think that those are long-reaching effects.